Kim and Ron arrived at the scene where they found the charred remains of the car on the opposite side of the road, and several police cars were parked nearby, alongside with a few global justice vehicles. Parts of the charred car were in pieces, and they noticed what looked like being remains of charred human skeletons slumped over the melted dashboard. "Oh man, this looks bad, KP," Ron exclaimed as Kim parked the car near the charred car. "I'll say," Kim replied as she unlocked the doors. "It looks serious, but I don't understand how it could be serious though to have global justice involved." "Well, it looks like we're about to find out, because I see Dr. Betty, director, over there too," Ron pointed out. As Kim and Ron stepped out of their car, Kim noticed that Dr. Director examining the back of the charred car. They hadn't noticed her there at first, but upon seeing her, Kim and Ron were certain that whatever had happened there last night, it was dead serious if Dr. Director was involved. Upon closer inspection, Kim deducted that this melted car appeared to have been either a Ferrari or a Corvette, but it was almost impossible to tell since the whole thing was particularly melted and burned to cinders at this point. As the two heroes approached the scene, Dr. Director caught notice of the two, and she pulled something out of the bump of the car. "Ah, good, you two have arrived," Dr. Director said. "Wade told me you were coming." "Yeah, he told us that there was evidence and that concerned global justice." "What's that you got there?" Ron asked, pointing at the burned metal object in Dr. Director's hands. Dr. Director held it up, and to Kim and Ron's shock, she recognized that it was the helmet of Professor Dementor. It was slightly deformed and burned by the fire, but it was still recognizable. "No way! That's Professor Dementor's helmet. Was he the one who burned the car?" Ron asked in shock. "Yes, and his accomplice was Duff Killigan. We found a deformed golf club with his name embossed on the inside of the car, and the Force Sins team then took some teeth out of the burned skeletons for DNA analysis. They informed me that a while ago, through dental records and DNA analysis, they confirmed that these skeletons belonged to both Dementor and Killigan," Dr. Director explained. "No way!" Kim exclaimed in shock. "They're both dead? Who could have done this? And what were these two doing together?" "We don't know," Dr. Director replied. "That's one thing we can't figure it out. We have no leads into what these two were doing the other night. Any evidence that may have been present in this car was destroyed when the bomb went off. Several people in the apartments heard the explosion and called the fire department. The police arrived shortly afterwards, and we found these skeletons inside the burning car. When we found Dementor's burned helmet inside, they informed Global Justice and we came to investigate. My team's been investigating this for hours, and we haven't been able to figure out what went on down there." "Man, this is going to be tough to crack," Ron said, frowning. "The car has been bombed," Kim analyzed. "Obviously someone wanted them dead, but for what reason?" "Well, it's anyone's guess right now, but that's where you two come in," Dr. Director replied. "I'm assigning you two to find out why these two were murdered, and I want you to find out who's behind it." "How can we do that? We have no leads of what Duff and Dementor were doing, or who wanted them dead," Ron wondered. "You'll need to investigate their lairs at first. Hopefully you'll be able to find some evidence on what they are up to. And then you might be able to find clues and to help us find out who was behind this car bombing," Dr. Director informed. "You got a point there," Kim agreed. "Duff and Dementor had to be up to something, and someone wanted them dead for some reason. Maybe their lairs might contain information on what they were doing or who they were working with. Whatever they're up to, it must have been serious on whoever they were working for wanted them dead," Ron said in a worried voice. "Maybe they weren't working with someone. Maybe Duff and Dementor did something to piss off the wrong person, and maybe that's why they're killed? It's all a mystery right now, until we investigate the lairs for clues," Kim speculated. "In any case, you two better get going. I have a feeling that whoever's behind this is far greater threat than we know," Dr. Director said. "Duff and Dementor were smart and cunning villains, and the fact that they were killed early this morning means whoever did it was incredibly intelligent, probably even more so than Duff and Dementor." Ron briefly thought back to Sensei warning him about Kim and him facing a greater fear than ever. Was the person behind Duff and Dementor's death that Sensei A was referring to as a threat? Whoever it was, we gotta find out who they are and stop them, Kim declared. We should start at Dementor's lairs. He's got bigger the two villains. Good idea, KP, Ron nodded. You two better get going then. Report whatever you find to me once you've explored both lairs, Dr. Director informed. No problem, Kim said. Then she headed back to the car with Ron following behind her. Man, this is just crazy, KP. I know I would have never expected that Duff and Dementor would be killed in something like this, Ron said as he entered the car. I'm surprised too, Ron. I know they were villains, very troublesome and treacherous ones, but death is something I never wish on them, Kim replied, glancing back at the burned-up car containing the charred skeletons of Dementor and Duff. I wouldn't wish that on them either. Though I'm going to be honest, it may sound a bit harsh, but I think we're personally the world's better off without them, Ron admitted. Rufus popped out of Ron's pocket with a shocked face, and Kim looked a bit unnerved, but she understood where Ron was coming from. Not gonna lie, Ron, those two were always causing problems, so yeah, things would have been better with less two villains to worry about, Kim replied. Yeah, but the other villains we know are still out there, save for Shigo and Draken. I'm glad those two have reformed themselves after the Lord Durian invasion, Ron said. So am I, and they seem to be doing what Dr. Director told me a while back. Shigo seems to be enjoying being a teacher, and Dr. Draken loves living out his old dream of being a professor, Kim replied. That's good to hear, Ron said. Even though it's been 2 years, it still kinda is a funny feeling seeing them going around doing things. It's not that I have a problem with it. Neither do I. I honestly think Shigo and Draken are much better off not being villains. It's best for everyone, Kim agreed. The two continued chatting down the road while also wondering where the two who could be behind Duff and Dementor's deaths. But Rufus just stayed inside of Ron's pocket, recalling that horrible nightmare that he had the other night. The one where Ron was in clad armor with a sword striking down a bunch of people that opposed him. Rufus wasn't sure if that was just some nightmare or perhaps a vision similar to the one Ron supposedly had. He never pictured Ron doing some terrible thing like that. But given the fact that Ron had mystical monkey powers that were almost on godlike level, Rufus then knew that Ron could have been capable of really destroying anything in his path. And if he so desire, Ron had already killed 2 alien warlords, so killing anyone else who opposed him wouldn't be any much trouble for him. But Rufus was pretty sure that was all hypothetical. Ron would never do that. He never heard anyone like that, Rufus thought, as Kim and Ron continued chatting with each other. The small rodent did pondering his thoughts continuously, trying to steer his mind out of the clear of the horrible nightmare as Kim and Ron continued towards their destination. Meanwhile, back in the Shadow World Organization hideout, Ridley was currently at his personal quarters on a large chair that resembled a throne, large front of a computer screen. His second command, Aaron Faust, was currently updating him on the recent secret weapon of his men were currently building within the base. Has the process of the building begun? Ridley asked Faust. Our workers are doing that right now as we speak, Faust reported. The Lordrian technology is providing quite such a hand and speed up the process of the weapons construction. Good, Ridley said with a slight grin. The sooner the weapon's completed, the sooner the first phase of my plan can begin. I also have some new information about our informers working for Global Justice, Faust informed. They said that Kim Possible and her boyfriend Ron Stoppable are attempting to find out who's responsible for the deaths of Duff Killigan and Professor Dementor. Ridley wasn't really surprised by this news. He already knew that it would only be a matter of time until those two would attempt to find out who's been behind the sudden deaths of 2 former supervillains. Yet Ridley was pretty sure they had a hard time figuring it out. He had already had his 2 informers raid both Duff and Dementor's hideouts to destroy any possible evidence that corrected them, with them working for his organization the other night. Let them, Ridley said simply. My informers already took care of the evidence in their last lair to link them to us, so those 2 pests won't be finding anything soon. Good to hear, my lord, Faust replied. If you don't hear any further assistance, I'll take my leave for now. My team and I are working on those new fighter shuttles that you've been wanting for the past month. Nice work, my friend. Those two will be assistants for us in the great future, Ridley said. Keep up the good work. Ridley out. He tapped on the button on the computer on the module on the screen, switched back to the main banner emblem of the Black Shadow organization, which it was black, red eyes skulled, with a red cross swords in the middle center of a white dot. The rest of the banner was a blood red color. Ridley then stood up afterwards and headed towards over a large shelf in the corner of the room, which had a large number of items set upon it. Most of these items consisted of their belongings or valuables that he obtained from the past fallen victims. They ranged from simple rings to bracelets, weapons, and even actual skulls. Some of them were animal skulls, but a few of them were human ones as well. Ridley picked one of the items off the shelf and was witching a silvery katana with his bright red bubbles lining around the bottom of the hilt. This katana once belonged to the wife of the powerful Yakuza boss that once had business with Ridley about a year ago, dealing with yet another rival, Yakuza clan, trying to take over their territory. This Yakuza clan, better known as the Torkasi clan, had once requested the assistance of the Black Shadow organization in dealing with the very powerful rival, Yakuza clan known as the Maidila clan. With their combined forces, Ridley and the Torkasi clan were able to eliminate the Maidila clan in just 2 days. However, one of Ridley's informers found evidence that the Torkasi clan were planning to try and assassinate Ridley and take over the Black Shadow just 2 days after the Maidila clan was defeated. Arranged by this betrayal, Ridley had sent out a team of his most savage, bloodthirsty death squads, known as the Blood Skulls, over to Japan, and had them brutally exterminate the entire Torkasi clan in the most savage way imaginable. Ridley has also ordered the extermination of the boss's wife and children as well, to ensure that they would never produce any heirs to stand against them. The sword of the Torkasi clan boss was eventually recovered by the death of the squads, brought back to Ridley as a trophy, symbolizing their conquest for the entire Yakuza clan betrayal. And that was the one thing Ridley did not tolerate amongst all the organization, with those working for him. Who even dared backstab Ridley or betray him behind his back would be met with a slow and agonizing death, such as the fate of the Torkasi clan and its members. Rather disappointing, Ridley murmured coldly as he held the katana in his back, leather-gloved hands. The Torkasi clan could have been more valuable ally to our cause, yet they chose to betray me. It's such a shame to emerge such a pathetic Torkasi clan, and the boss of that cauldron of heated hydrofluoric acid along with his worthless family, but such a price of this betrayal, which is something I will not tolerate amongst my organization. He then placed the katana back on the shelf and in its holder and gazed upon the empty spot on the top shelf, containing the katana holder. While it held up no katana sitting upon it, Ridley planned to fill its place soon. He had heard of tales of legendary sword known as the Locust Blade, a mystical sword that would change into a different weapon, depending on the wielder's thoughts. Yet Ridley had been unable to find it. However, his farmers were limited just to Middleton, or the US for that matter. They were spread out all across the globe, including in Japan, where Ridley had recently learned that the secret ninja known as Yakamashi existed. And there was the Lotus Blade that was located. One of the ninjas within the ranks of Yamadoshi had joined the Black Shadow organization. While back there, had been secretly feeding information to Ridley and Foss for several months, including the location of the Lotus Blade. Ridley was yet amazed of the secrecy society of the ninjas existed in Japan, completely hidden from the public. Not so secret any of my informers can't find it, Ridley murmured with a sneer. He longed to have a Lotus Blade along with his collection of trophies, and Ridley was quite sure that his secret red weapon wasn't completed. He'd get it for sure. Ridley's informers would have to make a go for it. After all, the Black Shadow organization had bases all over the planet, and there wasn't anything that could go unnoticed by Ridley or his followers. "Whoa, KP, this place is totally trashed," Ron exclaimed upon entering Professor Dementor's lair. "I'll say," Kim exclaimed. "It looks like a riot went on here." Kim and Ron had entered Dementor's lair in hopes of finding clues as to whom he and Duff had been working with. but they certainly didn't expect to find the lair in shambles. The two heroes stood in the middle of the large basement room, filled with various equipment and shelves, filled with now scattered papers. Some of the machines looked as if they had been damaged, and some of the papers were shredded all over the floor. There was also a desk in the far corner of the room, which had been knocked over and ransacked. A laptop was also laying on the floor next to the mess, with a large crack across its screen. Ron walked over to inspect it, but found it completely inoperational. "Man, it's busted," Ron said in disappointment. Kim gazed around the huge mess, tried to look around for any clues or anything that might come in to connect to Duff and Dementor's deaths. But she seemed at a loss, and so did Ron. However, Rufus had jumped out of Ron's pocket and looked around and noticed something near one of the fallen shelves. He rushed over to it and saw that it was a flash drive, a small red-colored 128 GB flash drive. "Found this," Rufus called out in a high-pitched voice. Ron and Kim turned over to see Rufus holding a flash drive in his paws. "What's that you got there, Rufus?" Ron asked. "It looks like a flash drive," Kim replied, as Rufus rushed back over towards Ron. Rufus handed the object to him and got a closer look. "Hey, yeah, it's a flash drive," Ron confirmed. "Nice going, Rufus. This might help us." Rufus grinned happily and jumped back into Ron's pocket. "We better take this back to Global Justice. It might provide them with intel of who Duff and Dementor were working with," Ron said, placing the flash drive in his pocket. "I can have Wade check this out too," Kim said, pulling out her communicator. "I'll plug the flash drive inside of it and send copies of it whatever's going on to Wade. He could check it out as well." "Good idea, Kim," Ron agreed. Kim nodded and called up Wade, who responded rather quickly. "Yo, Kim, what's going on?" Wade asked. "We're at Professor Dementor's lair looking for clues of who he and Duff might be working with and Rufus found a flash drive. I'm going to send copies of whatever the files are on it to you, so you can give me and Ron the intel of what you could find. We gotta take the real thing back to Dr. Director since it's evidence," Kim explained. "Alright, just plug in the flash drive into my communicator, and I'll copy the files from there," Wade instructed. Kim plugged in the flash drive in the small USB port on the side of the communicator, and Wade copied the files on them and downloaded them to his computer. "Man, it's quite a bit of files on this thing. It's gonna take some time to look through all of them," Wade exclaimed. "How many are they?" Kim asked. "There are 3 folders in it with 15 files each, and the folders have something to do with names such as funds, clients, and job. This might help us find out who Dementor and Duff were working for," Wade exclaimed. "I hope so," Ron said. "Whoever was working for them must have done them behind their deaths." "I'm guessing the same thing as well," Kim said. "Global Justice will want to see this for sure, so me and Ron will be taking the flash drive here once we leave this place. Kim, weren't we going to check out Duff's place as well? His place might have had clues as well," Ron reminded. "Yeah, I haven't forgotten," Kim replied, turning back to the communicator. "Me and Ron are going to head over to Duff's lair, and when we're done here, if you find anything valuable, contact us and inform us of what you find." "Will do, Kim," Wade said, and then signed off. "Should we search around this place a little bit more, KP?" Ron asked. "I doubt we find anything else valuable in here," Kim said. "This whole air's been trashed and ransacked, and I have no doubt that whoever killed Duff and Dementor was responsible. But it's obvious that was something that here that they didn't want anyone else to see." "You think Duff's place might be the same?" Ron wondered. "It's possible, but we don't know until we get there," Kim replied. The two of them left the trash remains of Dementor's lair, wandering and waited for them at Duff's lair. Once they arrived back inside Kim's coop, Ron contacted Dr. Director over his communicator and informed them that they were found in Dementor's lair. They had about files on the flash drive, and when Dr. Director heard about this, she was convinced that whoever had been behind the murders of Duff and Dementor were also the ones who trashed Dementor's lair, and Ron and Kim were ordered to immediately return in the flash drive they found over the lair to Global Justice once they were finished searching for Duff's lair. "We won't let you down," Ron assured Dr. Director. "I know you two won't," Dr. Director replied. "Global Justice has also been looking further in the matter, but we don't seem to have any other leads. However, there is something else we found out that got raised a great concern." "What did you find out?" Kim asked curiously. We were informed that earlier that the plutonium reprocessing plant Trombay, India, was broken into last night by 2 men dressed in security guards, and with several henchco thugs were accompanying them. Security camera captured footage capturing them knocking them out, tasering the several workers, then even stealing several metal drums of plutonium, Dr. Director explained. Plutonium? Isn't that something radioactive material used in atomic weapons? Kim asked. Yes, it is, KP, Ron nodded. I don't like the sound of it, but I don't understand how any of that has to do with Duff and Dementor's deaths. I didn't say it did, Dr. Director informed him, but we think whoever was behind those 2 men must have had a connection between Duff and Dementor. They haven't been identified yet, but Global Justice is working on it. I'm also pretty sure that my brother Sheldon knows something about this as well, because when I asked him about Duff and Dementor's death, he seemed to hesitate. I wouldn't be surprised if that guy knew what went down last night. Gemini's the leader of the worldwide evil empire, so maybe he's got something to hide, Ron speculated. I'm still pressing Sheldon for answers, but he's very hesitant to tell me anything. He even warned me just to stay out of this case or my life would be in danger, Dr. Director replied. This is very concerning. I don't know what Sheldon's hiding, but I have a feeling whatever it is, it has something or everything to do with Duff and Dementor's deaths. Why would Gemini be so afraid to tell you what he's hiding? I honestly don't know how it will put your life in danger, Kim wondered. I don't know, Dr. Director replied, but I am going to find a way to get him to speak, even if I have to drag him down to Global Justice HQ myself. Whatever he knows about this, I can't just brush aside because he's afraid it'll put my life in danger. I can agree with you on that, Kim added. Should me and Ron go try and bring Gemini in? No, Dr. Director shook her head. I've already have another agent going over there with backup to bring Sheldon in. And who would they may be? Ron asked curiously. Agent Lloyd Florence and his partner Nelson Rivers. Those 2 are some of our best agents in GJ, next to you and Kim. They are next sending the Worldwide Evil Empire HQ to retrieve Sheldon as we speak. No way, Lloyd and Nelson? Those 2 ones who joined in GJ last year? I've heard about them. Lloyd is a super rich billionaire with the high-tech spy gear stuff, and Nelson is like his childhood friend or something? Ron exclaimed. Yes, they are the ones, Dr. Director nodded. Sweet, me and KP haven't met them yet, but it'll be a real honor to work with them one day, Ron said in an excited tone. Perhaps I can arrange that sometime, but for now, I want you and Kim to investigate Duff Killigan's hideout for any other evidence linking to their deaths. Afterwards, report back to Global Justice HQ, Dr. Director informed. No problem, Dr. Director, Kim nodded. Good, I'm best be off now. I need to check up on Agent Florence and Agent Rivers to see how their mission is processing, Dr. Director replied, signing off. I wonder if there'll be anything useful down at Killigan's place, Ron wondered as they continued to sit down the road. I hope so, Kim replied. What Betty said about Gemini is worrying me, though. Do you suppose he might know something about what went down with Duff and Dementor last night? I'm pretty sure he must have known something about it, Ron replied. I just can't figure out what he meant. And he did say something about letting Dr. Director know whatever it is that is hiding would put her in danger. Whatever it was, it's got to be something big. Well, if Ancient Florence and Rivers are successful in bringing them in, we should be able to get some answers out of them, Kim hoped. That is just assuming he'll talk, Ron replied. I have a feeling if he's going to give us trouble if we press him for answers. Don't forget that he is the leader of WEE, so it's not like Gemini is going to spill the beans that easily. Good point, Kim agreed. But since Betty Director is his sister, Gemini might be more willing to make up for the other 2 of us. I sure hope so, Ron replied. I still can't get those nightmares out of my head, and I can't help but wonder if maybe they're hinting something towards something terrible yet to come. No matter what it is, we'll face it together, Kim assured. We have overcome so many challenges in the past together, and this won't be any different. Not like the 2 of us are together. Yeah, you're right, Ron said with a smile. As long as you're by mine and Rufus' side, we can overcome anything. Rufus then popped out of Ron's pocket with a happy grin and a nod. Kim then patted the small mole rat on his head. The free heroes then continued down the road to Killigan's lair, preparing themselves for whatever awaited them there.